Have black and white. So are you just wondering where that comes from, or? Yeah. Okay, beautiful royal palace. So, you know, I am biased and I do say that it's the most beautiful, but here is an actual fact. This is the biggest palace in Western Europe. The biggest one. You know Versailles? It's bigger than Versailles. Yeah, we're not including the gardens. Versailles looks a lot bigger because, you know, the gardens are so large. Here the gardens are actually quite small. But this is officially the biggest palace in Europe, 2,800 rooms in it. Insane. You probably get totally lost if you try and, you know, go on it on your own. They don't open all 2,800 to the public. They open only a few. It is absolutely beautiful on the inside. It is stunning. Each room has a different theme. You can get inside for about 10 euros. However, if you are a Latin American or a European citizen, you can actually visit it for free today, the last 2 hours of the day, so from 6 to 8. Anyone Latin American, European? Ooh, don't have many on this tour. You guys are all looking really bitter right now, yeah?
Is that every day?
No, it's only Wednesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays and Thursdays.
And the Prado the same?
And the Prado every day. Every day free the last 2 hours. And the Prado, you can be from anywhere, okay? Prado, they're nice to everyone. Here, no. European or Latin American citizen, you can visit it for free. Otherwise, it's a 10 euro entry, and if you want to take a tour on the inside, the tours on the inside, they're not very long. I think they're 45 minutes, and they cost 7 euros. Okay? So, great. This is the Royal Palace. A little bit about this palace. So this is actually the first palace to stand in its place. The first palace was built by Philip II. Where are you? Yeah, I told you, we always mention him. Philip II, when he moved the capital to Madrid. But that palace, it didn't look anything like this one. It looked a lot more like Plaza Mayor, right? It looked a lot more also like the town hall that we saw with that Habsburg architecture. The very pointy towers, the kind of brown coloring, and the very slanted roofs. Anyone know what this palace looks like? Been to other palaces, maybe one in Paris?
The Louvre.
It kind of looks like Versailles. It looks a little bit like Versailles. And that's because this palace was built under the Bourbons. And the Bourbons, they were a French-related family. And so they actually brought the same style of architecture from Versailles in order to build this palace. So this palace, it was commissioned to be built under the first king of the House of Bourbons, that was Philip V. Remember, we ended with Loser King, and then we get Philip V, the first of House of Bourbons. It was finished, they finished building it under Charles III. Charles III, he was the son of Philip V. Charles III, in that other cultural tour, or the rest of Madrid, he is the one who commissioned the building of all of the major landmarks of Madrid. So the Gate of Alcalá, the 3 fountains we have, which are the Apollo Fountain, the Neptune Fountain, and the Cibeles Fountain. And he opens the Retiro Park, this beautiful park. You guys should go. You can even rent a rowboat for 7.50 euros. Spend your afternoon rowing on a lake. He opened it up to the public. So yes, this was built under the Bourbons. When the Bourbons built it, Philip V, he actually decided that he wanted there to be a statue up top on the royal palace, a statue for every single ruler of Spain, back to before there even was a Spain. So remember those Visigoths that used to rule around Spain? They had a statue up there. Then what happened was Charles V, he had a pretty superstitious wife. Told you, Spaniards, very superstitious. And this woman, she had a nightmare that these statues were going to come alive, crawl into her bedroom window, and strangle her in her sleep. So she actually orders her husband to take down the statues that she can see from her window. When the statues are taken down, by the way, she also says replace them with flower pots, right? Because it's pretty. When she takes them down, these statues, they are not put in a cellar or destroyed. They're actually distributed in all of the parks of Madrid. So you can see the statues that used to be up top on your left, on your right. You can see them in the Retiro Park if you go. And you'll notice that when you look at the statues, they're not very finely carved, and that's because they weren't meant to be seen from such close up. They were meant to be up there. Yeah? So that is the royal palace. We're going to go to the side of the palace in just a second. Before that, I want to point out this dome, this colorful dome that you see back there. This dome is a mosque. It was the first mosque that was built here in Madrid. It was built in the time of the Moors. Yeah. So the Moors built this mosque. Behind the mosque is a place that you guys can see on your little maps that I really recommend you visit because it's pretty original. It's the Temple of Debud. This is an original Egyptian temple right here in Madrid. Now, why on earth is there an Egyptian temple in Madrid? No, we were, not taken by Egypt. It's because the Egyptian government actually sent this temple to Madrid as a thank you to the Spanish government for a Spanish architect that helped build some buildings in Cairo. So it's a little bit of a random story, but it's a beautiful temple. It's actually set up top of a hill. And as I said, it's right behind the mosque, about a 10-minute walk from here. And you can go and see all of the views of Madrid. It's very known for throwing open-air concerts. It has a big park around it. And also it's where students go and they engage in botellón, which means drinking illegally in the streets. Okay? Let's go inside the palace. When he's in the palace. So that's about once or twice a year for some very official ceremonies. Mostly this palace is a big waste of space. I'm just kidding, it's beautiful. It's open to the public. But yeah. Also, I told you about the statues rule, right? Well, there's actually 2 exceptions to that statues rule. And those are the statues that are halfway up to the top of the palace on either side of the square. Might be a little bit difficult to see with the bars, but you can check them out later. You have a statue on the left and on the right side of the square. These statues on the, halfway up, these statues do not represent the rulers of Spain. They actually represent the rulers of the conquered world. So over here, you have a statue of the ruler of the Aztecs, and over there, a statue of the ruler of Peru. These statues, what are they? They are a tribute to the 42 million people that the Spaniards massacred, made slaves, and persecuted back in the time when Columbus discovered America. And so the Spanish government's way of saying, I'm so sorry, is these 2 statues and also giving Latin Americans access to the royal palace for free twice a week for 2 hours. Fair trade-off, right? Totally fair. Exactly.
For all the gold and the silver.
For all the gold and the silver as well, right? On top of the 42 million people. Yeah, not really a fair trade-off, but what can you do? You are sitting, in front of that famous Cathedral of the Almudena. This is the neoclassical side. Remember? I think this is the prettier side of the 3, but it's still that giant cathedral that everyone in Madrid thinks is so ugly because, it has all of this mix of architecture on it. So before we end the tour, I promised you guys I would tell you a little bit more about modern Spanish history so you can know kind of the current situation of Spain. So we ended that history portion by saying that Francisco Franco, he was the dictator here in Spain from 1939 until 1975. And that during this period of time, Spain is in total social political isolation from the rest of Europe. Now, Franco's dictatorship, it was a really, really oppressive dictatorship. He massacred a lot of people as well. There was no freedom of speech. Actually, at the time, men and women, they couldn't go around holding hands on the street. So, early 1970s, Franco's health, it's fading, and he's looking for somebody to succeed him. And he has a right-hand man. He has this guy called the General Blanco. But the General Blanco, he gets assassinated by a terrorist group here in Spain in 1973 called the ETA, the ETA. Anyone heard of the ETA? The ETA, they're a really famous terrorist group here in Spain. They're the biggest, most active. They're still active today. There's actually a whole section of the police force that is still devoted to going out and trying to find the members of the ETA, the ETA. What they are is they're a group from the Basque Country, so from the north of Spain. And what they want is the independence of the Basque Country. Why? Because they think that they are the true blood Spaniards because the Basque Country was never conquered by the Muslims. Okay? They want their own country. They don't want to be associated with Spain. So the ETA, the ETA, it assassinates General Blanco back in 1973, and Franco, no right-hand man. So what does he do? Well, what Spaniards tend to do when they don't have a ruler is they turn to the House of Bourbons, as we saw before, right? They didn't have the Habsburgs, they were like, okay, Bourbons, come in. So Franco, he's like, why not? Let's have the Bourbons come in. And so he chooses Juan Carlos, who is the youngest of the Bourbons, and he is also the one who was raised in Spain, to succeed him, okay? Juan Carlos, he's like, why not? He swears, he goes under oath, and into Franco's dying phase, he swears that he will maintain the ideals of Franco's dictatorship. So on the 22nd of November 1975, Franco dies. On the 23rd of November, Juan Carlos is proclaimed King of Spain. And guess what? He lied to Franco. Because he most definitely did not maintain the ideals of the dictatorship. He actually slowly led the country back to democracy. And for the first time in decades, he held free and fair elections for Spain, and he gave Spain back the constitution. Now you can imagine this is a very sudden, very dramatic change for Spain, right? With sudden dramatic changes, there's often a portion of the population that doesn't really appreciate it. And we still have a lot of Frankists, a lot of fascists here in Spain, here in Madrid in particular. Since the dictatorship, the way that the Spaniards have decided to cope with it is a little bit how initially, the Germans coped with the Holocaust. It was at first to agree on silence, right? Don't talk about what happened during the dictatorship, and there was actually a giant blank in history about what happened during these years. Now that there's a little bit more distance between the past and the present, people are starting to talk about it more. Right now, they are still unburying mass graves. There are about 30,000 bodies still lying underground today, and private groups, they do go out and they try and unbury these bodies, identify these bodies. However, the government will not participate in this. So this does show you the ideological differences that still persist. Juan Carlos, though, because he chose the path of democracy, he was voted in 2004 the greatest Spaniard of all time. So, you could really, you would think that this king is super beloved, and he really was for a very long time. He had a lot of political coups attempted against him by the fascists, Most of these coups, they were caught in their planning phases and they were prevented. However, there was one coup in 1981 that stood out, and that was when two military officials managed to enter the Spanish parliament. They opened fire, and they announced on public radio that Spain was officially under military rule. This is 1981. Juan Carlos, he learns about the coup, and you know what? He doesn't support it. He opens up negotiations with the military officials, and calmly, through a series of clever maneuvers, he gets them arrested as they're exiting the parliament. And it is because of how he handled this coup that he is so much admired, by the Spaniards, up until very recently, when it was recently discovered that Juan Carlos has had many affairs, one in particular with a German lady, and that this German lady happens to have 3 palaces, 3 giant houses around Spain. Where'd you get the money for that? So Spaniards are not too pleased with their king right now. They're especially not pleased with the royal family because we're in a crisis. Yeah, we're in a crisis here in Spain. There is 27% unemployment in the country, 54% amongst the young. In Andalusia, it goes up to 33% unemployment. Okay? And meanwhile, right now, who is in trial? The son-in-law of Juan Carlos, who is being accused of stealing money. So we have people who, obviously have more money than they can imagine, stealing money when such a big percentage of the population is in a crisis. So, the current situation of Spain is not all la-di-da and happy. But Madrileños, I'm telling you, even with this crisis, they are still happy. They are still partying as much as ever. They love life, they love living, eating, they love drinking, going out. And I really hope that you guys get to see that out of Madrid. I do encourage you to go out at night to try and live the Spanish lifestyle of 5 hours later than usual. Dinner here, yes, it does start at 11. It's very weird, but it's fun. And nothing is open in the morning before 10 a.m. Yeah? All right, thanks a lot, guys. I really hope you enjoy Madrid.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'm here. I think you have maps. I can tell you anything you want. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks, guys.